Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome, dear students, to this class of morphology. Last time we talked about formal operations. We talked about back formation, the last point that we raised in the final class, in the last class. Sorry. Now, today we are going to go ahead with our uh, um, class of the operations. Actually, here, the next operation, the next formal operation that comes into play here is called coinage, which is a kind of adoption of brand names as common words. As you know, that brand names are created by lexicographers, people who are working on coining words together for the brand names. So a brand name here, with the passage of time, becomes the name of the item or process associated with the brand name. So the word ceases to be capitalized because if it is capitalized, this means that it is let's say it is a kind of a brand name and acts as a normal verb or noun. So it takes inflections such as plural, I mean number inflection or tense inflection. In general, the companies, when using the names, usually have kind of copywriting them, and they are object to their use in public documents. So they should be avoided in formal writing, as lawsuits could follow. For example, we have Xerox, we have Kleenex, Band-Aid, kitty litter, and so on and so forth. For example, here we have the Xerox. At the very beginning, Xerox used to be a kind of brand name, similar to LG, similar to Samsung, similar to uh, Toshiba, and so on and so forth. With the passage of time, there used to be a kind of change from being a brand name into a verb to mean copy. So at the beginning, they used to say, "Okay, would you please copy this sheet on the Xerox machine, not the, for example, Philips machine or LG machine or whatever machine." With the passage of time, this Xerox has moved to be, or has changed to be a verb for the word or the verb copy. So this kind of, so we say that the verb Xerox has been coined similar to or from the brand name Xerox. Next, we have onomatopoeia. Words, onomatopoeia, they are words that are invented, let's say, to native speakers at least, which with the sounds like the sound they name or the entity which produces the sound. So, for example, we have hiss, sizzle, cuckoo, cook-a-doodle-doo, buzz, beep, ding dong, and so on and so forth. Actually, here the form sound, the form sound match here does make them a distinct form of the language, because when we talked about the language, we talk about the arbitrariness of the language. Here, maybe this forms a kind of counterexample to the notion arbitrariness, in the sense that the sound of the word is similar to the meaning. So actually here, this is a part of the idea. The next is called borrowing. Borrowing, as we all know, we are familiar with borrowing, and borrowing is common among all languages. When we take a word from one language, so we borrow the word. So we have the borrowed word, the borrowing language, and we have the lending language, which is the source language, the language that gives the word is called lending, and the language that takes the word, that borrows the word, is called a borrowing language. So it may be adapted to the borrowing language's phonological system, of course, to varying degrees. Sometimes there is a kind of total adaptation. There is a kind of in Arabic we call it Arabization of the form. Sometimes there is a kind of slight phonological change, and so on and so forth. Sometimes it is as is taken, and so on and so forth. We have different examples: skunk, tomato from indigenous languages, for example. We have sushi, taboo from Pacific Rim languages. We have chick, schmuck from spaghetti, psychology from European languages, hummus, for example, from Arabic, right? Here from Arabic, yam, banana from African languages. So we talk about here words that come into English. So if we look into actually the business of borrowing, we find that all languages actually have a kind of interference among them, and this interference is due to either geographical reasons, political reasons, military, economic, religious, and so on and so forth. So the prestigious language at every level that we have mentioned is a kind of lending language, and the language that is inferior is a kind of borrowing language. When I say inferior, I do not mean the language that is worse or the language that has a low value. No, we mean it in terms of the relationship among the languages. So, for example, the story between Turkish and Arabic, despite the fact that Turkish was the language of the Ottoman Empire, who were in the Arab world, but the language that was the borrowing um, was Arabic. So Arabic gave Turkish a huge amount of its lexical system. Now we move to another point, which is called reduplication. Reduplication actually is maybe is looked at as if as the most, maybe one of the most important factors, phenomena in the language in terms of when we look at, I mean, the language morphology, let's say from a construction point of view. Reduplication in general refers to the idea that part of the base or the complete base is copied and attached to another base. So here we have, for example, we have, let's say, we have here examples like dandy, okay, like Andy Pandy, Lovey Dovey, Super Duper, Teeny Weeny, and so on and so forth. In Latin, here we have Kukuri, Iran, Kururi, Pidandi, Pidaneri, Sicini, Siniri. Here, if we look into this language, I mean, in Latin, for example, I will focus on this phenomenon of language. We find that the duplicated form, kukuri here, Sicini, kukuri, right? Kukuri or Sicini here, as a characteristic feature of Latin strong verbs, which usually inherited from Indo-European languages. Pedendi, Pandeiri, right, might illustrate differences in voice aspect or derivation, but further clarification here can be employed for a clearer understanding of these phenomena. So these forms in general, we can say that they can exemplify, they can embody, they can provide a concrete evidence on common Latin verb alternations that involve reduplication, vowel change, and derivational shifts. The same also here applies to FIFA in Gothic languages, I caught. FIFA which is fihan. Fifa, we have reduplicated form. Lie like, jump, right? We have also reduplicated forms in this Gothic language. So we find that here that reduplication, whether being partial or complete, they are available in the language, and they provide evidence on the construction architecture of the language. Here we have an example on partial reduplication, where we have net, right? And the repeated form is it. So we have net plus it, which is the partially reduplicated form, and we have the derivational suffix an. So here we have net, it's a whole root, but part of it, which is the VC, is repeated. The same, of course, applies to the rest of the data here. Has an, right? Has as an. And also we have puj, uj, an, right? So here, there is a kind of evidence on partial reduplication in this language. Another example, dear students, comes from this language, which has partial reduplication, but this language is which is of course it's Siltal, which is a Mayan language. In this language, there is a kind of ergative, non-ergative constructions, right? So here, partial reduplication actually has the function of changing a non-ergative into ergative form, verbs. So we have lu'u, right? Here, lu'u means bent. Lu Lulu'u, we have a partial reduplication. Mutu, mumutu. Sa'i, sasa'i. So here we have actually a reduplication that occurs before the main or the major stem. So the observation here is that in this data we have a partially reduplicated form precedes the main stem, while in the example before here for the net etan, it is a kind of the reduplicated form, partially reduplicated form, occurs after the main lexical item. I just want just for the sake of more information, it is important that we know the difference between ergative and non-ergative verbs, because this doesn't take place or doesn't exist in English, and also it doesn't in English and Romance languages. So ergative verbs, typically speaking, when we think of the ergative verbs, we can see that they are the verbs that can be used both transitively with a direct object and intransitively without a direct object, where the subject of the intransitive virgin here corresponds to the object of the transitive virgin. Uh, for example, we have a transitive, for example, she broke the glass. So the object is the glass, and you say the glass broke. So here it is important to know this, because in Arabic we have this kind of evidence on the use of ergative, non-ergative. For example, when we say the for example, القلم وكسرت القلم, right? So القلم here in both has the same meaning of object, but in the first one, in كسر القلم, is formally speaking, it is the subject with the nominative case قلم, but semantically and logically, it is the object that undergoes the verb breaking. So here we have this kind of variation. In non-ergative verbs, on the other hand, verbs that do not have the same alternation as ergative verbs. So if they are transitive, they always require an object, and their intransitive version do not allow the object to become the subject. So she ate the cake. She ate the cake. We cannot say the cake ate, for example. So, or we cannot say she ate, right? Here, but here there is no object. She ate, right? But the subject remains the same, which is subject, right? So here she ate the cake. The she is the object subject. The cake is object. And if we remove the verb, the object, which is cake, she ate, she remains the subject with the nominative case marker maintained at all levels. So the subject doesn't shift from agent to patient, and passive constructions, according to this example, are typically needed to express the same meaning, the same meaning. So this is a kind of a brief idea on the notion ergative, non-ergative forms. Okay, more examples come into play here. Lafu in this language. So lafu. Okay, just here I want to, before moving to the next example, I just want to have the data, read the data so that things become clear. Lu'u bent, lulu'u bent. Motu break, which is non-ergative. Mumutu break, which is ergative. Sa'i overturn, sasa'i, which is cause to capsize. Move now to next example. The next example we have on versus, on afwan, on partial reduplication, a noun into a verb. So here reduplication is derivation, right? It is derivational. So we say lafu, plot of land, lalafu, which is a kind of clear land, right? So we have a kind of initial reduplication, initial partial reduplication, lago, lalagu, the same idea here, pine, pipine. So here all occur before the main root, right? And they have the partial reduplication here, right? The partial reduplication in the initial position. Okay, so here we have here okay, we have lafu, plot of land, lalafu, clear land, lago, pillow, bolster, lalago, rest or keep steady, pine, pin or peg, pipine, skewer with pegs. Another type of reduplication, which is the complete, total, full reduplication. As in Tagalog here, we say bahay, which means house. So bahay, bahayan, which is playhouse, right? Hari, king. Hari, Harian, pretend king. Ina, mother. Ina, Inahan, pretend mother. Baro, clothes. Baro, Baroan, dull clothes. And finally, Anak, child. Anakan, adopted child. So here we notice that A becomes fully another A in full reduplication plus the an derivational marker. Okay. In Indonesian here, rumah, the same here. Rumah, house. Rumah, just repeating the same word. Rumah, houses. So here, reduplication is inflectional, right? It is inflectional because it is here singular and it changes into ish, into plural. So Ruma, houses. Ibo, mother. Ibo, mothers. Lalat, fly. Lalat, flies. Now, if we move to another Indonesian example, so Bili by Bibili. Bibili, Kain, Kakain, Pasuk, Papasuk. We find here, dear students, that here, this kind of reduplication in this language is partial, not total or full, despite the fact that the example before here is full. Okay, so here we have a kind of partial. We just we repeat the same syllable with the truncation of the consonant from the partially reduplicated form. Okay. Uh, okay, so we have here apa beat lash apa here, right? Yes, here in this example, another example here of full reduplication. It is verb into a noun change. It is derivational because it is a verb into a noun change. Uh, apa, it means wing or fin. O, flow on roll, flow on roll on. O, current. Solo, wipe dry. Solo, hand kerchief. Another example for reduplication for the sake of or the meaning of a frequentative or intensive meaning. So we have means kick, but when we have kick repeatedly again and again. Emo, blink. Emo, twinkle. Foi, return. Foi, keep going. Here we notice, dear students, that here the function of reduplication here is to for frequentative and intensive